Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. We're so glad you're here. My name is Corinne Bauman. I'm with Vital Village Networks, and I'm thrilled to welcome you to the final session of our Vital Village Networks of Opportunity for Child Wellbeing 2025 webinar series, Rooted in Connection, Rising in Power. During this season, we've had the opportunity to hear from leaders across the country who are committed to centering people, relationships, and connections to bring about long-lasting community transformation and systems change. We're honored to be joined today by three powerful movement leaders and advocates who will be sharing reflections from their experience and highlighting strategies to ensure that we uphold dignity and collective care across generations in our movement spaces. As we begin our time together, I'd like to acknowledge that we are continuing to strengthen our language justice practices. And this webinar series will be available in Spanish with interpretation services provided through our partners at the Community Language Cooperative based in Colorado. At this time, I'd like to welcome Carla to provide us with a brief orientation.
Thank you, Corinne. Good morning, guys. My name is Carla Rubalcaba. I am with the Community Language Cooperative. Today, we're practicing what we call language justice to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to speak and listen in the language they feel more comfortable with. To do this, we will use simultaneous interpretation between Spanish and English. So when I say this in Spanish, which is at the end, we're going to turn on the interpretation feature. That means that you're going to see like a little world map in the corner of your screens or three dots, depending if you're a computer and a cell phone, is where you get to select the language you want to hear. If you only speak English, please choose English. If you're fully bilingual, feel free to listen everyone in their own language. I'm going to be saying this in Spanish and then we're going to turn it on. So please try to speak and in a conversation pace. So because Spanish is kind of like 15-20% longer than English, it will take a little more to interpret. I would like to remind that everything that you say is going to be interpreted and will remain confidential. Give me 1 second. I'm going to say this super fast in Spanish. Buenos días, mi nombre es Carla Rubalcaba, trabajo con Community Language Cooperative. Hoy practicaremos lo que llamamos conciencia del idioma para asegurarnos que todos tengan la oportunidad de hablar y de escuchar en el idioma en el que ustedes se sientan más cómodos. Para ello utilizaremos interpretación simultánea entre español e inglés. Lo que ustedes escucharon hace un momento fue esto mismo, pero en inglés. Cuando termine mi introducción, vamos a activar lo que es la función de interpretación. Quiere decir que ustedes van a ver un mapita en la esquina de sus pantallas o tres puntitos, depende si están en computadora o en celular o en tableta, en donde pueden seleccionar su idioma, en este caso vendría siendo el español. Le recomiendo también que le haga clic en donde dice Mute Original Audio, que significa silenciar el audio original, para que no escuche ambos idiomas al mismo tiempo. Antes de comenzar, me gustaría recordarles que todo lo que diga será interpretado y se mantendrá confidencial y empezaremos en unos momentos. Before we start, I would like to remind, recommendation, if you click where it says Mute Original Audio, so you don't hear both languages at the same time. I believe we're all set up, so interpretation begins now.
Thank you so much, Carla. At this time, please take a moment to select the language that best suits your needs by clicking the globe icon as Carla indicated at the bottom of your Zoom window. You can also follow the instructions that you see on your screen. Today's webinar will be recorded and posted on our website within the next few days. We encourage and invite you to share what resonates with you in the chat box and submit questions through the Q&A. Our guests will have an opportunity to respond to questions later in the hour. Here you can see where the Q&A is located on your Zoom toolbox. So submit your questions by clicking that icon, and we will address those a little bit later in our hour. We only have a short time together this afternoon. It will be packed with stories from the field and lessons for us to take back to our own practices. For our time together, we'll share a brief overview of Vital Village Networks, followed by remarks from our moderator and featured speakers. And later, you'll be able to pose your questions as we wrap up with a few announcements for ways to stay connected. Whether you're joining us for the first time or have been with us for a while, I'd like to provide a brief overview of Vital Village Networks. We're a collective of change makers committed to pioneering sustainable approaches to transforming child, family, and community well-being. We're rooted in Boston with a broad network of peers and partners across the country, all connected through the networks of opportunity for child well-being, better known as NOW. We are bonded through our guiding principles of creating shared spaces for belonging, learning, engaging, and transforming our communities together. To learn more about our work and share your own stories, we invite you to visit our website. You'll find a variety of tools and resources, along with stories from other leaders working collaboratively to shift what it means for our children and our families and our communities to thrive. A little bit about our webinar series. The central question that we've been exploring this year is how can nurturing our connected roots help build and sustain our collective power? Particularly in the political and economic climate of the moment, these questions are critical to creating a world where we all can thrive. I'd like now to introduce our moderator for today's conversation. We're joined by Pancho, who is the Senior Director for Network and Power Building with the Praxis Project. Pancho will be guiding us through this conversation, and you can learn more about Pancho and his work in our speakers bio handout, along with our featured speakers, which will be shared in the chat just now. So Pancho, welcome, and we'll turn it over to you to get us started.
Thank you, Corinne. Buenos días, buenas tardes. Thank you so much for the invitation and the privilege of being moderating this panel with our two amazing speakers, my friend of many years, Maria Palacios, and my new friend, Fabian Eliasin. And we have a very important conversation to have about beloved people of our communities who are normally not centered. No, we're centering people with disabilities and disability justice and intergenerational work. And a lot of times in our work, that's not really centered. So we have an important task today. And I want to take a moment just to invite everybody to take a deep breath and arrive. We probably are running around to be able to take the time here to connect. So just take a couple of deep breaths to connect our brain to our heart, to our gut, and to honor the possibility we have to be together and connected. It is a little disorienting for me, the webinar format, because I don't get to see your beautiful faces, but I will imagine them. And it's important to rejoice in each other's presence because we're living in times in which people in our society, when they see us and they see diversity, they feel threatened. They see their fears, and it's essential that we get to see one another and rejoice on who we are, what we do, and honor that. I also want to say that I want to really thank our speakers for the effort they're going to make to speak in a very short amount of time about things that are important to who they are, to their lives, to their passion, their hearts. These are not issues. We're talking about lives. We're talking about stories. So I want to really thank Maria and Fabienne for being with us. And we're going to be touching on three general questions about what are communities facing in these times, this time that some people call a polycrisis, many crises at the same time. So what are communities, people with disabilities and their families, their communities facing? Then how are people responding, resisting, and creating alternatives? Yes, and how are we applying principles and practices of disability justice and intergenerational organizing to our work? And then we also hope to touch on what can help us nurture our hope these days. Yes, it's important to nurture our hope resist, and the first resistance always is the one of the spirit. And I want to move on now to introduce our amazing um, speakers. Um, First, Fabienne Eliasin is a parent advocate and mother of a disabled teenager who is dedicated to ensuring that all children have access to a holistic, high-quality reading access, mentally prepared, and equitable education experience. You all receive a copy of her bio that describes all the amazing work she is doing, and I would like her to take a moment to introduce herself. But before that, I also just want to also introduce Maria Palacios, who I have known for many years, and is a poet, an author, a spoken word performer, motivational speaker, social change advocate, disability rights activist, mentor, and workshop facilitator who has appeared in many spaces over the last 35 years. She's one of the OGs of the disability justice movement with the famous March of 1990. And again, you also receive her bio and can read more about the amazing work she has done. And I would like to take a moment for each one of you, Fabienne and Maria, to first take a moment to introduce yourself, and then 5 minutes to start speaking on the overall three questions that we shared. Yes.
Sure. Thank you, Pancho. First and foremost, I want to thank Vital Village, Corinne, Dr. Renee, and as well everybody who'll be able to join us here to invite myself, Maria, to join you guys this afternoon. So it is an honor to be here. A little bit about myself, as Pancho said, that I've been working in the community I'm in Boston, Dorchester, like covering different places and covering a lot of different hats and being an advocate, a mother of sister, aunts, you name it. So I've been around in the community, supporting, advocating, and helping families, most likely the most vulnerable families that whether coming in the immigrants who's doesn't have a voice and doesn't know how to navigate the system. So I've been helping them and supporting them as much as I can. So it's been always a win, even though it's small ways. So it's always been a win for me to just being the voice for the voiceless. So have my amazing, beautiful daughter. So she's kind of the one that will kind of push me to be where I am and doing this work. So I'm not working in this by myself. So I do have a village with me, and it is an honor to be here. So I'll just pass it on to my colleague here, Maria.
Thank you so much, Fabienne. And you know what? It's so awesome to meet you. I can't wait to get to know you and just build community. Yeah, how wonderful. And hello, everyone. I am truly excited and honored to be here. My name again is Maria Palacios. I am, like Pancho briefly mentioned, a disability activist artist. And he said 35 years, but I'm older than that. I've been at it for more like 45 now. I turned 60 in 2 months, believe it or not. So yeah, I had a little bit about myself. I had polio when I was 9 months old, so I grew up disabled. I came to the United States when I was 15 years old, and today, after decades of working in the field of disability rights, morphing into disability justice, I now work for an organization named Since Invalid. We are a disability justice, performance art, and movement building organization founded by Patty Byrne and Leroy Moore back in 2006. And Since Invalid is one of the architects of disability justice as the movement that we now know. So I am also very proud of my involvement with the disability rights movement. I am one of the capital crawlers of the March of 1990 that passed the ADA. So like I said, I've been around the corner more than a few times in the field. Through my art and through my passion. And just like you, Fabienne, I also I want to give a voice to the most marginalized and most invisible. And as we will get deeper into the conversation about what disability justice brings to the table, et cetera, I just want to briefly mention one of the principles, which is leadership of the most impacted. And you, my darling, that's what you just mentioned. So back to you, Pancho. You're muted.
You're on mute.
Oh, yeah, I have to do. Every time somebody speaks when they're muted, you need to drink something. That way you keep hydrated. That kept me alive during the pandemic. Thank you. What a treat to have you. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for what you do, and thank you for who you are and who you become in service of the people you love, which is one of the mysteries of life. We become what our community and the people we love need us to become. No, and that's a beautiful mystery. So let's go back to this initial questions, no? Like, what are people in the community facing in these times? And we can even merge it for sake of time also on like, and how are people responding to what people are facing? Yes. So we can start with you, Fabienne, and then yeah, let's take around 5 minutes, like what people are facing and how are they responding to these challenges and opportunities that these times
Yeah.
bring.
Definitely. I'm gonna focus more into the learning focus in dyslexia, right? Which is a learning if people doesn't know like what is the dyslexia, I'm just gonna give like a kind of a brief description of that, kind of a summary. Is like it's a learning disability. So people always thinking like, when you have a disability, it's like, in a wheelchair, it's like, you're missing a limb and things, not thinking about your mental, not thinking about like they want to see the physical, they don't see the mental of it. And people has been facing about the neurotype of a disability for ages. But when it comes to the Black and brown community, when you're saying that you have a learning disability as a neuro type of a way, they don't want to name it. They don't want to say it. They don't want you kind of the last person that they want to be able to just recognize that, right? So of that, if dyslexia is like where you're not being fluent, you're not being you cannot recognize the words, you smell in smoke, you don't spell the words, you having really hard to decoding and encoding, you don't know your phonemic awareness, is really hard to blend the words. So it's really hard for a child to be able to do that. So the system in some of the school, I don't want to say other states, but I know Boston, the way it is, you have to fail before they can help you.
Mm.
So therefore, when you have a child who's dyslexic and having really hard time to learn to read, they're not going to be able to just do that, learning about it as soon as you said, okay, let's do the testing. It's unless you have a parent or you have a teacher who understand and can help that child, they're not going to be able to just say, okay, let's do the testing right there. So as you can see that that's a lot of the things that people are facing. So we saw a lot of that when it comes to the pandemic. That's when you saw a lot of the parents didn't know that the kids were struggling in school. They didn't know the kids will not be able to just read. So when you find those things out, oh, my kid cannot read, but my kid is in third grade, fifth grade. What's going on? But my kids keep passing grade. But the teacher's always telling me that they're doing great. They doing awesome. And I'm always finding that. But again, it's the Black and brown, and they passing them, they're going to graduate. And later on, something happened to that child. They are the most vulnerable one, and they're the one who's gonna be locked up, right? So it is where you're seeing so many different aspects. That's the issues right there. So how many of the parents we see it as going to be able to figure it out or understand what is the child is going through? So your child has IEP. You have to really fight to get your child to get an IEP or understand what does the IEP needs to be involved into that or to get the services. They can get your IEP, but do they give you the right services that you need in order for a child to be succeeded? So again, when you get into those nitty-gritty of the things, of the needs, of the services, that's another battles you have to be able to just to go through. So as you can see, the child can be able to go through a lot. And then you see when they get frustrated, they cannot read, they acting up. It's not a they get suspended. That's what they're doing. Oh, the kid is trouble. The kid is bad. No kids is bad. The kid is telling you something that they cannot understand, but they're not understanding what the kid is looking for. So all those things, those are kind of the faces, the things that we are facing. So we have to figure it out how to educate ourselves, how to understand the child, how to educate the community, which is the teachers, the principals, the everybody that embrace that can be embracing that child. So we can be able to just help that child to succeed. Because it's not going to take just the parent or just the teacher. It takes a village to help that child to be able to continue to help on that. What can we do? How do we bring that up to the right testing? How to get to the right education? Maybe the school that the child is doesn't have the resources that they need, or maybe the teacher is not have the tools, but we need to be able to help them. So those are the existence of what we need to be able to help the community on that. So what is the hope? We all have to be able to just work together. So that is the hope we all have to do on that. So I'll just stop right there. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Fabian. It is very powerful because what you describe is like what seems to be a individual problem. It is really constructed as a social institutional lack of adequate response to some legitimate human needs, no? So it's very powerful because also the response you describe it's also a description of what radical love means, no, understanding, accepting, and supporting us as who we are. So thank you, and I pass it to Maria.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Pancho. Oh my gosh, I almost have to take a deep breath to begin to kind of answer this question because what are we facing? Disabled communities all over the world, we are facing ableism at the core of everything that we do, at the core of everything that we survive. Ableism is embedded in the culture and surrounding everything that has to do with disabled people. And Fabian, you're absolutely right. Disability is more than what we see. However, because of ableism, the world tends to only see those disabilities that are visible, and that's part of the problem. We are facing a lot of dangers right now. We are facing being abandoned and being left behind, forced into invisibility, being forgotten, being stripped of the necessary things that we need to survive. We are facing political threats that in so many ways are kind of unprecedented, although I say that, with a hint of whateverness, because ableism has existed and has persisted in the lives of disabled people since disabilities have existed, which is since the beginning of time. And that's another point, that disabled people have always existed and will always exist, and that's part of our power and part of how we survive and how we resist, is knowing that we will always exist. The non-disabled world, that's another thing that we face, is the non-disabled world. We're constantly under attack against disabled body minds, attacks against anybody who's different. But then you begin to add disability to the mix, and you recognize just how at the intersection, wherever you find ableism, you're also going to find racism, homophobia, transphobia, and any other isms. And it's pretty much unavoidable. And people a lot of times get surprised, and perhaps you shouldn't, because disabled people exist at every single intersection of life. I dare say that there's no intersection of life without disabled people. It is impossible to find. Impossible. Impossible. And one of the things that aggravates me so much, whew, is how invisible we are made to be. We are forced into these little boxes of the people who are different. And in reality, disability is the most normal thing in the world. If you are not disabled, don't worry, you'll get there. All you have to do is keep on living, my loves. Just keep on living, because disability is as diverse, as natural as life itself. And we have all kinds of disabilities and disability representation. And all of us come into that identity through different doors and different portals of life. Some of them are obvious and some of them are not. So when we do things for disabled people, when we do things through the lens of disability justice, we are not just doing things for those people. We're not just doing things for disabled people. We are doing it for all of us. For all of us. And the reason I said that I had to take a deep breath to answer the question is because we cannot talk about oppression without really talking about resistance. We cannot talk about oppression without talking about liberation, without talking about community, without talking about all the things that brings us together, because collective liberation is why we are here, no matter what part of the movement we're from. Collective liberation is what we seek, what we look for, what we want, what we deserve. Oh, God. And there's so much work involved in this collective liberation, and we need each other so, so much. And recognizing how much we need each other is part of the power that we have. It is part of the power that disability justice brings into the picture. The non-disabled world, like capitalist world, wants us to believe that independence has more value than interdependence. Capitalist world wants us to believe, and you give me 5 minutes, right? Oh my God, okay, I'm so good, I noticed. Okay, 1 minute. But yes, I encourage you to think outside the box. I encourage you to look beyond the obvious. I encourage you to look at disabled people just as people. And then when it's my turn again, we'll talk again more about resistance and the principles, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So back to you, Pancho.
Wow, so powerful, both of you. Thank you so much. You're feeding our mind and our heart and our gut. I'm feeling hearing, my God, I hear you and I'm getting, it's not just ideas. It's like I feel the connection and the power. And I would love to also be able to hear the stories of the people in the Vital Village Network, all the effort they are doing to also respond to their own needs as individuals, as families, and to those communities they work with. You work with community, you're working with people with disabilities, but sometimes we don't see them. Sometimes we're not intentional about including them. And something I learned when I was the director of Living Hope Wheelchair Association for 10 years with my brothers immigrant with spinal cord injuries was I really saw it with them that solidarity always is intentional. It has to be intentional. I can hurt you by accident. But if I'm going to be in solidarity with you, I need to be intentional. So when we're talking disability justice and intergenerational work, which means like people that sometimes by their age, they get excluded or people with disabilities get excluded, we're talking about intentionality of solidarity. Yes, and you were reminding me of that. And I want to go back to now the question of how are people resisting and building alternatives, no? And we can go back with you, Fabian, to share some of the. I mean, we've got preparation calls, things that you
People,
have been.
sure.
Go ahead.
How people are resisting. People are not giving up. People are not giving up and not doesn't want their kids to fail. Like I'm gonna give you like example for me because I refuse to for my child to be a statistic. I refuse. I refuse to see my brothers and sisters who's coming from the Caribbean, from others, whether they were born here or there, whichever. I refuse to see them like another black and brown kids. Because just because we may not be wealthy or the kids are coming in like in the urban community, therefore that they do not have a right or they do not have a chance to thrive. That I refuse for that. Because as I said, this disability that doesn't define them. That's not who they are. Just because they cannot read at this grade level, at this age, at this time, that doesn't mean that they cannot learn how to read. They do not have somebody to guide them or doesn't give them the chance or the time. Because that's the reason, like, I took a year off to fight with I call her as a sister from another mother. She's a co-founder of the Decoding Dyslexia, Nancy, to make sure that we have the bill so we can have this bill passed for dyslexia, so they can be able to just identify to be able to screen the kids, because before they didn't have to do that. They were not teaching the kid to screen them, and then all they were doing is just like keep passing. So now we just had another bill that passed, how to read, like last October. That also took time too, but even though there was resistance on that, they passed it. The Right to Read Act, because it's not just about to do, okay, you screen them, but now what's next? Early screening. Educators have to learn how to be able to, they know the resources, they have the tools, because you can be a teacher, but not every teacher knows how to teach to read. That's another thing. How does the district or your principals are supporting you? All that, it takes collective. So we have to work together. We cannot work in silo and not allow them to just say, okay, we're passing through, because we had so many kids pass through. So this is the time and the movement to say, okay, no, enough is enough. If one is make the difference, we're not going to be able to allow the other ones to fail. If I can do it for my child, I'm going to pass the knowledge to somebody else. This is how I did it. I'm going to teach you. I'm going to guide you. And the knowledge that I have, it might be different, but things are moving along. So I'm going to be able to guide you through. I still get phone calls. My daughter's going to be graduating next year, but that doesn't mean I'm going to stop. That doesn't mean I'm not going to help somebody else. No, it's also because when you succeed, the teachers succeed, the schools succeed, the district succeed, the community succeed. It's all of us who's being elevated. That's the next generation for us. We're moving on, we're passing on. So who's going to be the next one to teach over and over, like our grandkids, the next generation? That's them. Because now we need to elevate them, because without that, we're not going to be able to just, we putting them back where we were before. We have to be able to, that's the hope. We do one person at a time, one child at a time, one community at a time, one organization at a time. So we have to elevate. And that's the hope. We're going to be able to pass it on and make sure that we are moving along and we are passing along. So this is the time of the movement. Even though that things are going really hard, but don't give up. And it's been hard. Like at this time, we can see like there's not a lot of us, a lot of people who looks like me who's fighting this fight. People who has money, they can be able to get private tutors. I may not be. I can find, but I may not be able to just get the same resources as the other ones. But I refuse. I'm gonna get it, and I'm gonna be able to get my brothers and my sisters to get the same thing too, because we all have a seat on the table. We all allowed to be great, and so does our children, and the next generation coming after us. So I, again, do not give up. And that's what I said. We're not going to be a statistic. And this is it. I'll leave it there.
Wow, I want you to run for president. That's so beautiful and powerful because it is, I mean, there's so much dignity and love in what you just say. And the notion of we refuse. We're in a moment in which it's essential to refuse to accept the version of reality that those in power are trying to impose on us. And that includes a version of ourselves that they want us to accept and a version of history. And you are not just talking, but actually doing personally and collectively. So thank you so much, Fabienne. And I want to pass it to Maria.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Another deep breath here. I don't think it is a secret that disabled people and marginalized people are resisting. I think that for us, for many of us, just the fact that we are still breathing, it's how we resist. It's how part of how we survive, and it's part of our power. But there are many. There are many ways in which we are. I never this person. I'm sorry, I was saying goodbye to my mom. In which we are resisting. For example, here in one vivid example that that I can utilize is through Sense Invalid. Something that we started, which we call the Crip Survival Network. And I like the word solidarity. You had it as a Crip Solidarity Network, and I like it. It's called the Crip Survival Network, and it was born from the realization that, yet again, disabled people continue being left to die, continue being abandoned and forgotten. So we need each other to save one another. And so we formed this group of, right now it's about 20 organizations, and Praxis, Pancho's organization is one of them, as an ally organization. And we have come together to basically do that, to help each other survive by learning from each other, by sharing resources and experience and mapping out our survival, by modeling disability justice. And that's one of the things, like, I wanted to provide an example of disability justice in action. Okay. And Pancho, you can attest to this because you attend our meetings, right? At the beginning of this meeting, I came behind the scenes before we opened up the space, and the interpreter was giving us a little run of what it was going to be with the language justice aspect of the communication. And she provided us instructions on what's going to happen, and you can choose your language channel. And then I think somebody, I believe it was Pancho, who asked, what kind of sign do you provide if one of the speakers is talking too fast? And Pancho made a sign like, what's the sign, Pancho? Yes, like, the motion, like either too fast or slow down, or, and it made me realize something. Number one, Pancho, just food for thought. This sign right here is completely inaccessible to a blind person. How the heck would a blind person notice that you're telling them to slow down by doing this, as an example, right? Another thing is, like, in the world of disability justice, how we model it, how we exercise it, how we resist, is by being, yes, intentional, but also intentional in the way that we slow down, in the way that we slow down and move as slow as necessary so that everyone can participate, so that nobody is left behind for real. Imagine in the space how it would be communication being passed on to a participant who's blind, as an example, right? Things must slow down to fit the needs of the slowest person, of the slowest participant. That's how we not leave each other out, right? That's how we not leave each other behind. And so the interpreter said, no, usually we don't say anything if somebody's talking too fast. I feel kind of bad for the interpreters, like, oh shit, you just keep going. And in our world, like in the Crip Survival Network, we slow down. We say, excuse me, just a minute. Interpreters need this space in order for communication to continue flowing. There's somebody here who's not able to hear, or there's someone in the space who needs this, or who cannot access the channel. And so it made me realize, that being anti-capitalist is part of how we resist. It's necessary to step outside of that box of ableist, unrealistic expectations of productivity that force us to move super fast, that force us to catch up to the fastest person moving in the movement, rather than slowing down to move along with the slowest person in the movement. And I see, dang, how does 5 minutes pass so fast? It's because the conversation is so damn good. That's why. Okay, my 5 minutes are up.
Oh, you have 1 more minute. That was the advice, that you have 1 more minute.
Again, another note. I'm visually impaired as well. All I could see was the sign of you lifting something. So actually, my warning should be verbal, because I didn't know that it was 1 minute. I just saw the paper up, and I took it as my cue. So you see how automatically the things that we do out of habit can, without meaning to, leave somebody out, right? And so being intentional in the way that we ask people for what their access needs are. Access needs, all of us have them. All of us, no exception. Disabled people, non-disabled people, Black people, white people, short people, tall people, dogs, cats, trees. Everybody that has life and needs air and water to survive has access needs. So in the world of disability justice, we intentionally come in and say, hi, my name is so-and-so. My access needs are these. Like, as an example from me, my access needs would be to hear the cues verbally spoken because I really can't see them, or if something in the chat to be read out loud. And just like that, those are simple and minuscule examples of the little tiny things that we can be intentional about so that everyone can participate. And that's one way in which we are resisting, in which we are, saying no more. You're gonna move, you're the one who's gonna slow down. I'm not gonna be speeding up to your level of communication or whatever. Being
Yeah.
anti-capitalist is another one of the disability justice principles. See how good I am to like weave them in there.
Yeah. Yes. You are amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much. And I think, yes, like you're modeling also what I have heard you say many times at the calls of, and in other spaces when bringing this idea that there is no social justice, there is no social justice movement if it doesn't really include disability justice, and modeling and practicing the openness, the freedom, the humility to learn together and not to be consumed by guilt or fear of not doing it enough, like the intentionality, but also the responsibility to be mindful of impact, because I might have all the intention of including people, but if I'm not open to do better, then the impact that I might still continue excluding people, no? But that freedom to learn together, to do together. Yes. Um, and yeah, time is a tyrant, and in capitalist societies, we became separated from ourselves, from our own time. We cannot really roll in our own terms. But I want to honor the agenda and open to see if we have any questions in the in the chat. Um, um, I see that you, Renee, thank you so much for sharing the disability justice principles on the chat. Hope Bastian says that we love to connect with others in Boston public schools interested in doing anti-ableism work, no? And it's like, what are we against for? What are we against? But also essentially, what are we for? It's not just anti-ableism, but it's for disability justice, inclusion, what the kind of world we want to build. And also you made me think the notion that both of you is the rights that the needs we have, basic human needs are basic human rights. And we're in a society when that is being contested and denied. Yes. I don't know if there is any other question in the chat. And if not, I would like to give you for a brief final message on how do you nurture your hope? Like, because we're facing this crisis when people in our communities are receiving this impact of criminal, horrible immigration enforcement, people being kidnapped, or budget cuts that affect people access to basic food, housing, medical needs, or unemployment. So many people losing their job at the federal government. So many things, climate change that also creates disasters that make people with disabilities particularly vulnerable in disasters. So all those things, and yet, as you say, here we are resisting, living with joy, with dignity, with love. What nurtures your hope to be a closing?
I will start on that. I think Maria said something like, disability, it affects everybody. It's not mentally, physically, or short, white, cut, you name it. It's affect everyone. You may not have a disability right now. You may have somebody in your life, in your family, who's going through that because you're going to be the voice for that person. So you have to be intentional and be the voice for them, and also how to advocate and also how to help. Because once you learn how to be able to be caring, be able to love, be able to be in that space, you have open door for so many others. Because people don't know when they're going to be able to be discriminate. They're gonna do it sometime intentional. They're gonna be very biased. That's the society. That's the life we're living on. But how we be able to just change the conversation or to correct them, not to humiliate them, but how to correct them. Because life is a correction, life is a journey. So we have to be able to educate them from little bit all the way to adult. It's the same way to teach them how to read all the way to the adult, because it's a journey. So the question I'll be able to add, how can you support? How can you help? How can you help your loved ones, your community? There's so many different things. And I think someone put it in the chat. If how can you be able to help a child? If you can volunteer to go to the school, read to a classroom, go to tutor a child, or if you see a family is struggling, guide them, help them, support them. If you know that the school may not have the resources, how can you be able to help them? Or the community, find an organization. There's tons of organization who be able to just can be able to support, or maybe some organization they don't even know where to start. As Spencer mentioned, there's a lot of cut that's taking place. There's a lot is going on from social justice, you name it. So that is where we have to be able to just figure it out how to help in that way. Take a deep breath. Take a deep breath and help and consider it to just be thinking outside of the box. Because that's another thing that we also have to reach out because sometimes we going so fast and thinking so much. But what other ways that we can be able to take a deep breath and we think about, okay, this didn't work. This channel did not go the way that I wanted. Slow down and figure it out how to recap on that. And if you never really done anything, find something like it can be a volunteer, it can be something you never done, and push yourself. And because this time now, you don't want to do anything because we're living in a chaotic life, a chaotic place. But at the same time, we have to think about hope. We have to think about the next thing. This is not the end.
Yeah.
We've been there before.
Yeah.
We've been there before. So what other ways that we can be able to teach the new generation that's coming up to say, okay, we are resistant. We are coming, her grandparents fought, and we can do it again.
Okay.
So think about other ways that you can help your loved ones, support them, and find your niche. If you don't find a community or something like, find something you passion. If it's the arts, go to it. If it's a poet, go to it. If it's cooking, go. Find something that you're passionate about it and take that and support someone through that. And you're making a difference in your life, in someone's life, and in the community. So and that's where I'll be able to figure it out, to leave you that. How can you help and how can you support? That'll be the question for you. Thank you. And I'm very honored to be in this panel with you, Pencho and Vital Village, for the invitation. And it's been an honor. And thank you again. I wish everybody a wonderful time. Happy holidays.
Thank you, Fabian. Maria, what would you like to add in the 3 minutes that we have left for questions? And there is a question about where to find resources. I will just invite people to look for in their city, in the internet. There's sometimes commissions for people with disability and organizations that have been there for a long time. But yeah, we like to hear like how do you anchor and strengthen your hope to keep going?
Oh my gosh, I find that there's so many channels and sources. Artistic expression being one of them. Art is such a beautiful conductor of positive thinking and change and everything. And more than anything, I find hope by building community with other disabled people, by learning about the survival of others. And also, I remind myself constantly that when a disabled person survives, automatically that helps other disabled people survive. In a world that is so ableist, that it wants us to be gone and dead and disappear, loving ourselves, self love is the most revolutionary act of rebellion that we can ever exercise. I like to say that self-love automatically fights ableism, and that's how I hold on to hope. I call myself the goddess on wheels for a reason. I'm constantly nurturing myself and my vanity, and so love yourself because we need it. We need it. The world is such a horrible place right now, and by loving ourselves first, we're more able to love others as well. So it's just very simple, but just a plain truth. And I encourage you to please look us up. Sins Invalid is an amazing organization that has a lot of resources on disability justice, a lot of video and written material that you can utilize in your own spaces. And feel free to reach out to me. I want to be your comrade, your friend, your in-house goddess on wheels, whatever.
Awesome. Yes, sister. Beautiful. Yes. Yes to all of that. I'm so grateful for both of you and for again for what you do, who you are, and also for our audience who I'm sure they've also engaged in their own battles locally. So again, I want to finish honoring that, taking a deep breath to excel, to honor, to rejoice on who we are, what we do, to acknowledge that sometimes what we do is not enough to liberate ourselves or to stop suffering, but that should never lead us to believe that we are not enough. We are enough. No, and what we're doing is sacred. Maybe we're not saints, but we're sacred. And what we're doing is sacred. And we need to take the moment to honor that and strengthen ourselves on that. And yes, also organize, organize, organize. As Fabienne was telling us, like join, find a group, but organize, do the collecting. And as you say, find your hope in your community, build community so that we can go from a problem to be solved to a power that needs to be reckoned with. How are we building power to make all this possible is by continue walking, journeying through together, no? But centered on that self-love and that acknowledgement of our shared dignity. And with that, I want to thank again the Vital Village Network, Corinne, and the team, Renee, from the opportunity. And the both of you, I want to send you away with a strong applause. You know, I do silly applauses. So let's do a strong applause for you. I cannot see the audience, but I know they're going to do it with me. This is how you do a strong applause.
This is deaf applause. This
This
is how
is
deaf people do it.
deaf applause and a disability justice applause. And much love to both of you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Back to you, Corinne.
Yes, thank you all so much. I just want to echo that gratitude. What a powerful conversation. I know I am sitting with so many incredible gifts, Fabian and Maria and Pancho, that you have gifted us this afternoon, to carry forward. So thank you. As we close out this afternoon, just wanted to share a few ways to stay connected. Thank you again for joining us. Following the session, you'll receive an email with the recording link, which includes the Spanish audio recording. You'll also receive a reflective action guide. As we saw, action sort of live, learning in action here this afternoon, we wanted to offer a reflective action guide for you to consider what you're hearing and what actions you can take around building and sustaining justice movements that are rooted in principles of disability justice. This reflective action guide is available in Spanish and English. We also want to share that we have 3 seasons of our podcast series in the Arena with Now. You can find this on our website, anywhere you get podcasts. These are incredible stories of leaders in the field doing work around being rooted in connection and rising in power together. As Pancho said, closing us out, really organizing, right? Thinking about the coalitions and the community that we're building and doing this work together with one another. So that's a wonderful resource for you all that you can check out at your own time. We also want to highlight our approach to building community power. It's rooted in connection. You can visit our website and check out the Now Playbook, a how-to about transformative community capacity to advance equity. This guide features tools as well as best practices from coalitions across the country. Finally, you can find a dignity-centered guide to reflecting on cooperative funding structures. This is a guide for exploring funding partnerships that are grounded in equity and power sharing. You can also find this on our website. Thank you all so much for spending time with us. Time is such a precious resource that we have. So we appreciate you taking the time to be with us in community and in conversation. We look forward to connecting with you on our website through social media and seeing you in the new year when we kick off our 2026 webinar series. So as a final note, have a lovely, safe, and connected day. Please take care of yourselves, your family, and your community. Thank you so much.
Yay! Great job.